Bit of a strange intro there, guys. Aaron here, Canadian Looney. We've got a great video to watch. We're starting out with how Vancouver was.
World Exposition on Transportation and Communication. Expo 86 was a major turning point in Vancouver's evolution from a regional port city to the world-class city it is today.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Vancouver was on the rise, man. It was a great time, but look at it now. This liberal government. Everybody is equal. Is that guy dead? What was in that crate? What was in that crate? All right, is this a pillow or a weapon? Like, it's pretty unbelievable what this NDP Liberal Coalition of Destruction has done to our country, starting with our most beautiful city. Oh my God. And it's on purpose. We're going to explore that a little bit some more. Let's take a look. Mark Carney is here selling out to some Eastern European, oh my God, Mark Carney and his book of values. You have none. I hope that crappy cat food is for a cat, at least.
Brecht is standing by. He's a military analyst, senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute and the Center for North American Prosperity and Security. Good to see you, Christian, on this Monday. Your take on this visit by Mark Carney to Ukraine, Poland, and eventually to Germany.
Well, look, our big announceable on this visit was that we signed a customs agreement with Ukraine. And we re-announced drones that we had already announced on the occasion of the G7. This is why Canada is not being taken seriously. We may make these types of commitments. These are places that, spending commitments that we might get to. We might grow the Canadian Armed Forces. I do think the Prime Minister has a serious commitment, but it's telling that the Prime Minister, of course, is traveling alone. There's no other European leaders there with him in Ukraine. He was not there at the White House with 7 other European leaders backing Zelensky. It suggests that we have a very large lag to make up for to show that indeed Canada is a country that should have a voice at the table.
What more would you like to see?
A recommitment to the foreign policy instruments in this country. And the way I always sum this up is we've been fighting against the terrain. We should be able to shape the terrain. We shaped the terrain significantly in the aftermath of the Second World War and into the 1950s and 60s, realizing that ultimately we needed to assert our interests. In this very volatile world, it seems to me that we're constantly reacting. And the reason that we're reacting is that we have become significant on the radar of our allies for what we're not doing or not able to do. And so I always like to term the Prime Minister's commitment, the Prime Minister's investment is actually to make sure that Canada is significant by its insignificance, that we can actually do things because we might not be conspicuous by our presence, but we are very conspicuous by our absence.
And this kind of a trip, is that part of trying to change the narrative, Christian, about Canada by Carney going in person to these places, trying to shore up some of these relationships, perhaps in a way we did not see under the previous Prime Minister?
Well, I think the narrative is largely for domestic consumption at home to see what the wonderful things are that Canada is doing. I think what our allies want to see is actually real commitments, real engagement, real spending, real capabilities by Canada. And, we can talk about possibly committing troops to some security guarantees in Ukraine, but these are zero-sum games because these troops are currently committed elsewhere. And we've had an organization that has been undercapitalized, underfunded with atrophying capabilities and atrophying staffing. So the Prime Minister is right. He's making a generational investment in the organization, but it will take quite some time to turn this organization around where it can perform the sort of political expectations that Canada has for its armed forces. It just doesn't have the resources and capabilities within those armed forces to come through. And I think it'll be telling how his meeting with Chancellor Merz goes in Germany. But of course, Merz has been to the White House repeatedly, has never felt it necessary to make a stop in Canada. That alone is telling, and he's making the Canadian Prime Minister show up in Berlin. We'll see whether the Chancellor, who's really the kingmaker in terms of European foreign policy, whether the Prime Minister is able to convince him that Canada really does matter, and that'll require a significant U-turn also on policies such as energy resilience.
Military analyst Christian Luprecht with his take. Good to see you as always, Christian. Thanks for that.
As if that isn't just about enough to get you sick to your stomach, like that guy points out all of Carney's flaws. Now let Carney point out his own. This guy is a fake and a phony. He's here and wherever he is, Eastern Europe, promising dollars that are coming out of your taxes. Like, assure you that. This guy Carney, man, he's the downfall of democracy in Canada. Like, it started with Trudeau, this WEF policy agenda. They are sabotaging our futures. Let's take a peek. Like, why would he be doing this?
Okay. Well, it is good morning, everyone. Still morning. It feels like it could be the afternoon after everything that we have seen. This is an absolutely extraordinary deployment, extraordinary group of women and men, and it is my pleasure to greet the members of the Canadian Armed Forces and our NATO allies. It's an honor. It's a tremendous honor for me and the Minister of National Defence of Canada to be with you here today at the Adagi base. The Minister and I have just come from a trip where we've been in Riga, in Berlin, in Warsaw, and Kyiv. And it's fitting. We've been building up to this moment. It's fitting to conclude our trip here at the Adagi base, standing with so many courageous men and women who defend our values, our freedom, and our security every day. This, as we've seen this morning, is much more than a military base. It's an anchor of service, of cooperation, a foundation of security. A foundation of security in a world that's more divided, in a world where we must once again contend with hard power, contested borders, and authoritarian aggression. Oh, yeah. Those serving in uniforms, and 14 uniforms, at this base represent over a dozen allied nations. Allies who train together in advanced combat and strategy. Allies who work together seamlessly. This is one of the impressive accomplishments of this base, Colonel. Working together seamlessly to preserve peace and security in Latvia, collective security in the Baltics, in Europe, and across NATO. Thank you. Thank you for the duty and devotion that you demonstrate every day. When the Minister and I were in Kyiv on Sunday for Ukrainian Independence Day, it would be difficult for us to overstate the enormous gratitude that was conveyed to us by the Ukrainian people for Canada's contributions and the contributions of our allies to their freedom and independence. Canada's contribution over the years includes more than 45,000 Ukrainian security service members who've been trained by Canadian soldiers as part of Operation Unifier. And we'll see some of those soldiers, some of the officer corps later today. Ukrainians know that Canada and our allies stand with them. They know that their cause is our cause, that we stand with them for freedom, for democracy, and in independence. And so it was in 1991 when Canada became the first G7 nation to recognize Latvia's independence. The 34th anniversary was yesterday. We recognized that independence after Latvia had courageously reclaimed independence after decades of Soviet rule. And so it was when Russia illegally annexed Crimea in 2014, Canada, under Prime Minister Stephen Harper, launched Operation Unifier, sending hundreds of Canadian Armed Forces personnel to Ukraine to train Ukrainian troops to fight Russian aggression. And in April of that year, 2014, more than 100 members of the Canadian Armed Forces were deployed here to Latvia to begin Operation Reassurance. Today gives a sense of what's been built on that core. 3 years later, as Russia's threats to the Baltics intensified, so 2017, 2018, Canada stepped up to lead the NATO battle group here at the Adagi base and added 450 more of our troops. And today, this battle group has grown into a major multinational brigade, with Canada leading more than 3,500 soldiers from those 14 nations. Working together, soldiers working together to deter and defend against Russian aggression on NATO's eastern flank, and to fortify our shared defense by air, by land, and sea. Since its inception, the need for Operation Reassurance, unfortunately, the need for Operation Reassurance has only intensified. In Kyiv on Sunday, I recalled decades ago when President Ronald Reagan led a peace effort with the Russians, he adopted the slogan, "Trust but verify." But Vladimir Putin is not Mikhail Gorbachev. Putin seeks darkness, not glasnost. He seeks empire, not perestroika. We can't trust but verify with Putin. We must deter and fortify. Deter new aggression and fortify our shared defense. And that's why yesterday the Minister and I announced the extension of Canada's Operation Reassurance for another 3 years. This renewal will increase capabilities in Latvia to reinforce our collective defense and to bolster our cooperative security and strengthen that NATO deterrence. The extension of Operation Reassurance is part of our broader mission to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces. This June, along with our NATO allies, many of whom are represented here today, along with our NATO allies, we committed to NATO's new defense pledge of investing 5% of our annual GDP in the next decade. For Canada, this will represent a quadrupling of our defense expenditures in cash terms by the end of this decade. We're making this year alone additional investments of $9 billion. And we're working with urgency and determination to increase our defense capabilities to meet the threats. In moments of crisis, when people see the maple leaf on a sleeve, they see hope, and they get help. And the pay of our soldiers should reflect the weight of their responsibilities. And that's why last month, Minister and I announced the largest pay rise in a generation for the Canadian Forces, with all members of the CAF receiving a pay rise. Those pay increases are retroactive to April 1st of this year, and the rise will be applied on top of base pay. We're also introducing a new military service pay benefit, recognizing the time spent in uniform. And we're increasing the pay for high-risk training and deployments, such as here. And we're reforming posting allowances so that families disrupted by frequent relocations, including some of the soldiers here coming to Latvia, receive greater support. Lorsque les membres de forces armées seront mobilisés ici au pays ou outre-mer, ils pourront se concentrer sur leur mission sans autre préoccupation. Et c'est comme ça que nous faisons en sorte que lorsque les Canadiens et Canadiennes sont en détresse, lorsque nos alliés appellent à l'aide ou lorsque notre souveraineté est menacée, les forces armées canadiennes sont prêtes. To support the women and men of our armed forces, we're making major investments in our military capacities. In June, we struck a new EU-Canada security and defense partnership, leading to Canada's participation in the European SAFE initiative and the launch of the Rearm Europe plan. By doing so, we'll be able to partner with our European allies to invest in new drones, in new ships, in new aircraft, and new munitions more quickly and more economically. And we're also, back home, creating a new defense procurement agency so we can build at pace. So the women and men of the armed forces have cutting-edge military equipment that they need and deserve. These investments will modernize our military, and they'll fortify our leadership role. Oh, yeah. Because if we're going to deter Russian aggression in Latvia and the Baltics across Europe, if we're going to secure a lasting and more durable peace and security, if we're going to defend and advance our values of freedom, of democracy and peace, Canada must do so from a position of strength. In short, if we want a safer world, we need a stronger Canada. And so it's the service of the women and men behind me and those that they represent. It's their service and sacrifice that makes Canada strong. As we confront the challenges facing the world at this hinged moment in history, Canada's leadership will be measured not only by the strength of our values, but also the value of our strength. This is the strength on the very front line in the struggle between authoritarianism and democracy, between freedom and fear. And in no small part because of their service, your service and sacrifice, this is a struggle that we will win because we are stronger together. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
So what is it, guys? Like, really, is Prime Minister Mark Carney a piece of trash as I think he is? He's a dirtbag. Or do you have Trump derangement syndrome or some kind of other illness? Because if you're not just watching the news, the CBC, the CTV, they've got you already. Like, global, all that bullshit. Give me a break. Mark Carney is a con man. Long con, short con, whatever. He's a con. It's very frustrating to watch. Aaron, Canadian Looney, I'm out. This guy makes me irate. Like, better watch out, Mark Carney.
As a European, I am a European,
European.
actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh.
I'm Irish citizen. Yeah, so there you
welcome.
go.
Welcome.
Speaking as a European.
WTF.
How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?
More than just elbows. And as the most European of the non-European countries,
being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you
What
sought
possible
to avoid.
conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Confiance.
these are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, you're spending more money on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
All right, gang, thank you all very much for watching. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. Smash that subscribe. We're trying to grow this thing. Canadian Federal Politics. Get yours right here. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.